The race to 5G is on, and the battle for talent is getting fierce. Welcome to 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, a podcast dedicated to helping you face the future workforce head on. Navigate this challenging talent landscape with innovative strategies to attract, retain, and engage people in this new world of work. Only here on 5G Talent Talk with Carrie Charles, CEO of Broadstaff Talent Solutions.
Welcome to 5G Talent Talk. I'm Carrie Charles, your host, and this is the first show of 2025. So I'm really excited. We've got a lot of some changes planned for 2025 for the show. Really exciting things ahead. But today, I have with me one of my dear friends in the industry, and I've been trying to get him on the show for a long time, and he finally said yes. So it's Dennis McCall. He was with Verizon for, I think over 30 years. He'll talk about that in just a minute. And he was an associate fellow in RF engineering. He is now retired. He has his own new company called Practical RF. Dennis, I'm so glad you're here. Hey.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, and you have, you've had an incredible career and now a transition. Talk a little bit for those that don't know you. I know you're well known in the industry, but for those who don't know you, a little bit about your journey and be interested how you even got into this world of RF engineering, because I know it has been your world for so long.
Right. I've always had a passion for wireless. Walkie-talkies as a kid always fascinated me, and then went to San Diego State to get my BSEE, and like the last semester or before the last semester or before summer, I saw on the elevator a note about an internship at AirTouch, and so I ended up carrying transmitters up to the top of hills to do what they called pack rats. You set up a generator and antenna, and you drive around and collect signal information. And that's how I got into the industry, and I enjoyed it. I thought I wanted to work for Qualcomm, but it turns out I wanted to be more hands-on and get operational. And that's where I really found my passion at the market level in San Diego. And then transitioning after 20 years, transitioning to headquarters maintenance engineering, where I'd help others and help establish policy and procedure for the business. And I just enjoyed every minute of it. I appreciate all of the opportunities that I had with Verizon.
So you recently, I don't know how recently it was, but you transitioned from Verizon, from a long career at Verizon, to your own business. And tell me, I know this happens with a lot of people where they think, gosh, I'd really like to do something else or something different, but there's a lot of obstacles in the way. What contributed to your decision to start your own business, and how does it feel?
It feels great, but it certainly has been a challenge. Over the last 10 years, I knew that eventually I wanted to go out and just work on things that I wanted to work on and solve problems that I wanted to solve. And I was fortunate enough to have a VSP, a voluntary separation package, was offered to me. And I figured, well, after 30 years, if I'm not going to do it now, when they're going to give me this cushion to take away some of the risk, I'm never going to do it. And so I had to pull the trigger, and we parted ways. But I'm still, very close with all of the people that I worked with, and I'm still, staying in the industry. I'm still wanting to solve those problems, interesting problems, really.
And complex problems. That's complex, what I
saw. Simple solutions to complex problems. The best solution is it's no big deal. Just everybody go home. And then it's like, okay. And that's always fun when you get to say that.
Yeah, I know. I've done that before. So tell me about your business and the type of clients you work with, and maybe some of those problems that you solve.
So I guess there are the problems that I see that would benefit the industry. And typically those are areas where large amounts of money are being spent inefficiently. There are certainly opportunities to capture those monies, because that's one of the challenges that the industry is having now. And then the other side of things, I'm just want to work on things that I find interesting. So, when I go to shows now and I talk to people and I can ask them, hey, what are you working on? And they'll, and we'll talk and we'll chat and we'll troubleshoot and collaborate. And I always want to, I don't mind helping anybody do anything. It's always interesting, and sometimes it's more serious than others. But always there has to be an element of fun and passion and a need. But I enjoy helping people solve problems, and that's what collaboration is about, and that's what these shows are about. You have your Avalon Tough and Daspedia and Mobile World Congress. These opportunities to collaborate. So it's what happens in the hallways between the meetings.
I know. I saw you at Mobile World Congress, and you had a lot of meetings lined up, actually. And I know that there were people coming up to me asking where you were and if I knew where you were. So I know that you're highly sought after now. You've been in the industry a long time, and I've known you. Oh my goodness, there was an event every year, a very large event called VZTUF, Verizon Technology Users Forum, right? And so you produced that event, and it was phenomenal. I would have to say, I thought it was the best event of the whole year in our industry.
Thank you.
And so that's why I first met you. But, you have been on stages, you've been on panels, you've seen it all from behind the scenes, from hands-on everywhere. But what is your view right now? Actually, let's talk about the industry a little bit. Where you see that it was, and again, this is the wireless industry, where you see that it was, where are we now, and any ideas about where we're going in the future. It's January, we're all excited, ready for a new year. What are your thoughts?
Well, when I started June 15th, 1994 was my first day. It was a Wednesday. And back then, the margins and the revenues, there was no problem. I think the revenue was something really silly, like 50 cents a minute or something along those lines. It's crazy. And what that brought is unlimited budgets. Whatever you wanted, you could get. And everybody, since you had unlimited budget, all of the salespeople and the experts were there for you to talk to. And also the cell sites were on the ground. So if you wanted to test something, you just had to walk into the cell site and hook up to the test coupler and start making measurements. And that's really how you have to learn, is getting hands-on. And so from that perspective, in the 90s and early 2000s, things are great. But we've seen over time that margin has disappeared into nothing. And we're talking fractions of a penny on the minute. And the revenue streams that of previous are something that I think the industry is still looking for, because they are for profit. And I get that. And there's requirements to the street, and those requirements are hard to handle from an engineering perspective. Going from perfection to managing budgets when you have a lot of problems to go after, but you don't have the budget to go after all of them. How do you manage that? And that's where the engineering really comes in. So you need good engineering. You need to know the fundamentals and the background so that you can capture those moments and go after what's important and what's not important. And I think that's where the struggle is, because at the same time, the radios now are on the tower. You can't touch them. And so from an RF perspective, how are you supposed to learn? It took me a good 10 years to really get the basics of what I was doing. Immediately when out of school, I thought, I was an expert. No, absolutely not. I think after 10 years, I realized I didn't know a whole lot. In 20 years, I realized that I'll never know everything. And so now I'm just a humble engineer that knows what he knows, and I will make mistakes, but I'm trying. And I think the engineers that are coming up now do not have the opportunities to learn. So in a situation where there's little budget, and so there's a lot of folks that are struggling and looking for opportunities, and it's in that chaos that I think I can bring value. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, this is how we're going to do it. But you have to be willing to break some eggs in these tough times.
Let's talk about that. because again, we talked about you being, I call you a solution master. I feel like that wherever there's a problem, you bring it to Dennis and he'll find the solution, right? And what challenges do you see today with the service providers specifically? I mean, I want to look at both sides, right? Like you touched on it a little bit. So challenges with the service providers and also the challenges maybe that the contractors and suppliers are facing.
I think that the challenges are with training and having providing the engineers the foundation that they need to so that they can come through and make these hard decisions. Because what we're seeing is now that the budgets are going down, the contractors are being asked to accept less and less money. And so there are a lot of contractors that are leaving the business because the money isn't there. And so that leaves the lowest bidder there. So in order to do better, we need to just capture the inefficiencies and try and recover some of that money. And what I always like to talk about, and what I'll be talking about at Avalon Tough in January 22nd and 23rd, are just the operational expense associated with antenna system failures. For example, well over $100 million for the carriers, right? 100 to 200, maybe even more than $200 million annually. And I've talked to a lot of contractors over time saying, okay, guys, when you're told to go out to a site, how often are you successful? And a typical answer is 50% of the time that you go out on that first, you go out there one time and you're going to spend $3,500 to $5,500, maybe more for that visit. And if you're solving the problem 50% of the time and $200 million are on the table, that's $100 million of waste. And so there's a lot of efficiency that we can get. And so what I want to talk about are the novel approaches to reducing that operational expense. Like external passive intermodulation is a big problem. Just rip and replace as a troubleshooting method is a problem. Just taking radios down and antennas down and replacing them in the exact same situation with the exact same problems, and you end up going out 10 times, spending a couple $100,000 to fix a problem that may not even really be customer impacting. So my approaches are, okay, let's look at this problem, what's causing it, and then how can we resolve it without spending money? But that puts the contractors in a tough spot because they're there to make money. But even they would say that the inaccuracies, the miscategorization of the problems that are being sent to is a problem. So how do we fix that? And I have some ideas for that as well, which I'll be talking about at Avalon Tough. I mean, my goal is for everybody to win. There's so much money on the table that's being just wasted. So let's go after that, and let's make it so everybody wins and goes home.
I love that. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about. I want to talk about where you are first. So you're in your garage right now, and you have your setup, your desk. But when we had our call recently, a couple weeks ago, you brought up all this stuff you're working on. Do you have some things that you're working on right now that you can show, like do a little show and tell? Because you've got
Sure.
a cool area there.
See, I tried to switch my camera. I can't switch my camera anymore. But so see, I'll do it. So here, this is this is my very first purchase when I left the business. This is a calibrated dipole antenna. And so understanding dipole antennas I think is really critical for a radio frequency engineer. And so in order to really understand a dipole, you have to dive in. So this is a transmitter from EC Site. It's a 4-port transmitter. And I basically have just a monopole antenna that I've configured, just a wire that is coming out of that. And also a thermal imager, so I can turn that on. So the thermal imager, so I can see the electron movement in the wire to understand how that's happening. And then you've got cool things like reflectors that you can start playing with. So the idea being we have all of these things, and there's spectrum analyzer in the background. Turn the transmitter on. Anyway, so you get hands-on and you start playing with these things and you see what matters and what doesn't. And one of the experiments that I've been running is on fiber reinforced polymer. So you look at a cell site and the panels that they put in front of the cell sites, This is a 1/4 inch fiber reinforced polymer, and the effects on the antenna systems are massive, and the problems that they create are huge. And so that's another thing I'll be talking about. I've run some experiments comparing different materials and how they affect things, our problems around antenna systems, and then how to select materials to reduce those problems. And I'll be sharing those results in Dallas.
How can we'll talk about that in a minute? How's technology going to play a part in solving these problems?
Well, the processes, our processes have to get better. And right, there's a narrative right now that artificial intelligence is going to be a big deal. I mean, we've had blockchain was a big deal, and virtual reality and augmented reality and robotics, that was going to be a big deal. And there's a lot of narratives and big deals that are out there. And right now, artificial intelligence is one of them. And certainly there are applications for these large language models, but it's at the end of the day, you have to have folks that really that are passionate about these solutions and understand them. So narratives aside, we have to get better at our processes and the processes that are being used to characterize problems and issues. It's like, where are those issues? So AI can find the problems, but yeah, what then? Right? Because we can see the problems now and we're getting it wrong 50% of the time. So how do we do better? And so that's I think that's what the evolution that we're going to see is an attempt to capture efficiency and to do better and to spend less but do better and help the customers out there.
So I see maybe some technology in your future, a few patents coming. What do you think, Dennis?
It's funny, the patents. There are a lot of focus on patents, but what I do with RF engineering, I'm not creating anything. I'm taking like known pieces and I'm putting them together in different ways and applying knowledge. And I've tried to run several patents, and I'm always told, yeah, but no, this is just another way to use what we already have. And it's like, okay, well, so it turns out that folks that are on the ground that are passionate about RF, there are very few opportunities to get patents. I mean, if one shows up, fine. Got a couple of ideas, but I'm looking for interesting problems to work on and problems that can generate revenue for my business, Practical RF, right? And where those two intersect is where I'm going to be spending my time. And the interesting problems that nobody cares about but me. I'll do that as well. But I don't think, patents, that'd be great, but that's, I have never done well with patents.
You never know. You never know.
Never know.
Dennis, you and I have talked a lot about just talent and workforce and diversity. I mean, we've just had many conversations about that, but I'm just curious. You talked about the industry and where it is today, how it's changed. What advice would you give to, a young person in the industry right now, someone who maybe a young engineer who is thinking about getting into the industry, or somebody who's been in for a bit, with all of your experience, what advice would you give to them?
I would say, whatever you do, make sure you're passionate about it, because it's a long haul. And I loved going to work many days because I was going to get to work on some really cool stuff. And I'm very passionate about RF, all aspects of it. But I would say certainly try and find an area of the business that you're passionate about and move that direction, but also start gathering around you others that are experts in their field, like you are an expert in your field. And so when there's it's nice, having 30 years under my belt, and there's a lot of folks that we can all call on, and we know each other. It's like, hey, I have a problem. Oh, Carrie's going to know that. Carrie, got a weird question for you. And those calls happen all the time, and they're super fun. But building a network and building a career around something that you're passionate about is what I would absolutely recommend.
a network. I agree with everything you've said, especially the network piece, because I think that is instrumental in anything you do in the future. Like when you started your own company, I mean, immediately your network, realized what you were doing. You talked to them. They're like, okay, I want you to help me. So I agree with that. Really strengthen your network this year. In fact, all of us need to do that this year, is strengthen our network, become more active on LinkedIn, do the things that we need to do to get more connected. And then, if you've lost passion, then reignite the passion, right? Find out your why. Why did you start doing this in the first place? Because I know as the industry, it's been tough. It's been tough the past couple of years, and we can lose some of that fire because it's been so hard. So I think you hold on to that why, right?
I love talking about the RF fundamentals. I get very passionate about it, and so when I provide training classes, training moments, my passion comes through, and people like it, and we have fun. And so and this is something I was working with a client yesterday, and I said, well, what we need to do, just get together some training stuff. Like I did some online training that I did with Verizon. I said, wait a minute, I could still do that. I'll just pick the topics that I care about and invite cool people in, just like you're doing, and just geek out on some cool stuff.
You need a podcast, Dennis.
Okay. No, a podcast is just recording stuff and putting it on a platform, right? So if I record it and I put it on YouTube, that counts?
Yes, it does. It does. It counts. Well,
Okay, I have a YouTube channel, Practical RF. There's one video on there. Right?
Oh, you do? Okay, awesome. So Practical RF.
On
You
YouTube,
need
yeah.
to do, let's say, what, another one a week?
Oh, yeah, that's what I should do. Yes. Uh-huh.
It's coming. Well, it's time to talk about Avalon Tough. And
Okay.
Avalon Tough, and again, I know that you're one of the founders, one of the creators, also the producers, I will call it. And tell me the story. So Avalon Tough it's an event, and it takes place January 22nd and 23rd of 2025 in Dallas, Texas. The website is avalontough.com. Now, it's Avalon Technology Users Forum, and that's spelled AVALONTUF.com. And I suggest that, everyone needs to register. It's an awesome event. But Dennis, tell us what it is and why it's an awesome event.
If you go to that and you scan down on the page, we have now posted the event schedule. And so you can see all of the speakers, all of the training opportunities that are going to be there, and it's everybody that is collaborating to solve the problems that we're working on. And if you're a service provider, if you're T-Mobile, AT&T, or Verizon, there's a code that you can use to get free access. So you just might as well come on down, spend the day and just hang out, because it's an opportunity to collaborate and learn. And the trainings that are selected are something that is supposed to be very impactful. I think a lot of the spend right now on problems is on external PIM. So there will be a lot of discussions about external PIM and interference, and also training sessions about the materials and the tools that are being used. And the GCs are going to be there as well. And we're going to be talking about all of these things. And it's not just the training opportunities, it's the opportunities to collaborate and work on some of these issues. Because there are folks out there that are working on some serious problems and have some great ideas. And it's often just comes out of the woodwork, some of the solutions for the problems. They're there. And even if it's a problem that somebody's working on, okay, let's talk about it. We don't have to make money, let's solve problems. And that's what my sales friends say, no, you got to get paid. I said, no, actually, I don't. Let's solve some problems, and if somebody gets a jet, just give me a ride.
What's different about Avalon Tough that I like, and again, I'm honored to be moderating the keynote panel, and we have some amazing speakers on that keynote panel. Really, really excited about that. But what's different about it is, and we've supported it every year at Broadstaff, is that it's not a typical conference. It is hands-on. People go there, like you said, to collaborate, to solve problems, to learn. There's training opportunities for your team members, and obviously the networking, but it's a very different kind of event, and it does remind me a lot of VZ Tough, And because VisiTough was like that too, it wasn't just another conference. And so I think, again, I think it's going to be awesome. It's probably the first show I know of this year. I mean, I know there's also Mobile World Congress probably in Barcelona, something, but, one of our industry
CES
shows.
is going on right now, right? I think CES is going on right now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, but they're not hands-on.
They're not hands-on. Yeah, Avalon Tough is hands-on. So I think, and you're going to be speaking. You're going to be doing some trainings and some speaking there as well. Good. So we'll hear more solutions to more problems. So, no, that's awesome. Again, January 22nd, 23rd, Dallas, Texas. It's AvalonTough.com. You can register there. I want to see everybody who's listening right now, no matter what country you live in. Let's go. Let's be there.
Great.
So, Dennis, again, I have just had so much respect for you for so many years and everything you've done, and I think you are probably one of the most brilliant human beings I've ever met in my life. I just wish you all the best with your new company. How can we reach you to hire you or to learn more about what you do, or maybe just to collaborate and solve problems?
I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a practicalrf@gmail.com. I monitor that. And, feel free to give me a call. I don't know if I should give my phone number out, but if you're in the industry, just ask around. They'll tell you. Or just get me on LinkedIn. I'll give you my phone number on LinkedIn.
Yeah, or you can call me. I've got his phone number too.
Yeah.
So
Call Carrie.
reach out to me.
Yeah.
All right,
And
Dennis,
call anytime. Don't worry about formalities. Let's just have fun conversations.
I love it. Dennis, it's always a pleasure.
Carrie,
thank you for
you.
coming on the show. And,
It's an honor.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for our friendship. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what great things you're going to do in our industry.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to another informative episode of 5G Talent Talk, brought to you by RCR Wireless News, Telecom Careers, and Broadstaff Talent Solutions. As we advance into the future, we promise to bring you the resources you need to navigate this ever-changing landscape of 5G to help you attract, retain, and engage people in this new world of work. To access the show notes or leave a review, visit broadstaffglobal.com. Until next time.